Hello, and welcome to Creative Presentation. Welcome to Full Sail. I'm hoping you're all excited to begin. And there's going to be a lot this month because we also have to deal with a holiday this week. But this month, you're going to be working towards pitching yourself to a potential employer. The way the course has been laid out is that you build a little every week. So in week one, you're going to be watching some presentations. You're going to be identifying some of the techniques that they use so that you can then incorporate those techniques into your presentation. In week two, you're going to be creating a presentation plan, which is really going to lay the foundation for the presentation that you're putting together. That's going to be a written document that's like a very detailed outline. It's going to require some reflecting, some brainstorming, some research, and some organizing of that information. Week two tends to be, I would say, the most work-intensive week. So just be mindful of that. And then week three, you only have one weighted assignment, which is putting together your presentation. This is when things start to get a bit more chill. And then in week four, you're just refining that presentation and giving some feedback on some other student presentations. And so that week tends to be a bit more chill as well. But that's just like a really quick overview of what's going to be happening this month. Now, I am your instructor. My name is Desiree Labrada. I'm a 3-time Full Sail graduate. If you've already had an opportunity to check out my welcome introduction video, then you'll know that I'm a nerd. I met my husband playing video games. We met each other playing Halo 2. We ended up having a Halo-themed wedding because of that. And it was highly publicized. We were on like MTV and VH1, and Full Sail actually helped organize and plan the wedding. But outside of that, I have degrees in media design. So I have an associate's in digital media and then a bachelor's in digital art and design. And then I got my master's in media design. So I know what it's like to be a Full Sail student. I've been both an on-campus and an online student. I can relate to some of the struggles that you're going to come across. I'd like you to be honest and do your best to communicate. I know you're going to come across hurdles, and that's okay, but let's just work together to help you get through them. In regards to the best way to contact me, the best way is really on FSO. I exist on FSO during my work hours. I'm usually responding to messages, I'm replying in the discussion boards, I'm grading assignments, so it's where I spend the most of my time. And if you send me a message there, I will get a notification, and as soon as I can, I will respond to it. The second next best way to reach out to me would be to send me an email. My email is dlabrada@fullsail.com. And, I understand that some people might either communicate better over the phone or may have multiple questions or, anything like that, which is fine. But in that case, I would like to make an appointment so that we can schedule a call. I want to be able to give you my undivided attention and kind of carve out some time to discuss the assignment or to answer questions or whatever it is that you need. So just send me a message first, say you might be struggling with something and you were hoping to schedule a call, and then we can go from there. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, hopefully. Okay. All right, so what we expect from students. I really want you to approach the class with a positive attitude and an open mind. I feel like this makes a world of difference when you're starting things. I know that you're all super eager to get into your respective industries, but if you can stay open, you're going to take in so much more valuable information than if you come in being like, why do I have to take this class? I don't understand. This is dumb. I want to get to my core classes. So just do your best to stay open. Kind of don't have, and this is the way I like to approach my media, whether it's watching movies or reading books or whatever. I kind of just like to go into it without having any expectations, because I'm usually surprised by the time I'm done, because then you're not comparing it to anything. So the other thing to keep in mind is that I want you to feel comfortable asking questions. There's really no such thing as a dumb question. There may not be the best time to ask a question. For example, the majority of your assignments are going to be due by 11:59 p.m. on Sundays. So asking questions at 11:30 is not a good time. It's really not. So my suggestion is usually that on Mondays, even if you don't start actually working on the assignments, if you review them and give yourself an opportunity to figure out, what you don't know, if you need clarification on anything, that's a really good idea, so that throughout the week, you can start asking those questions and you can have answers before the weekend when I'm not available to answer questions. It's also important to note that you get out of it what you put into it. So you're going to be offered a lot of resources here while at Full Sail, not just in this class, but take advantage of those things. If you have instructors that are going to be reaching out to you and answering questions and maybe talking to you about things that you want to go above and beyond with, then take those opportunities. There's going to be a lot of chances to do additional stuff. We have different online presentations that happen and stuff like that. So really take advantage of everything that's being offered to you. One second. Okay, so what students can expect from us? Well, I'll always be there to lend a helping hand within reason. So I am a human being. I am a mother, I am a wife, I have pets, I have like 5 pets, I have hobbies, I need to eat, sleep, and shower. So I'm not available 24/7. After my office hours, if you send me a message, chances are you're not going to hear from me until the next day when I'm in the office again. If you send a message late on a Friday, chances are you're not going to hear from me again until I'm in the office on Monday. So, I will be available to give constructive feedback, and there is about a 7-day turnaround on grades. So your assignments are officially due on Sunday, and 7 days from that, you will have your grades for that week. Now you'll start to see them before that, but I am grading 150 assignments a week, so they'll kind of trickle in, but you should have them within that 7-day turnaround time. That's an important one. So just give me a yes if you understand that. There is a 7-day turnaround on grades from the due date. Perfect. Thank you. All right, copyrighted materials. You will be putting together presentations. Sometimes it's almost unavoidable in regards of, including some copyrighted materials, because you might be pitching to a software company or a game development company and you want to have some screenshots from the game in your presentation, and that's totally okay. But speaking that you're all going into your respective entertainment industries, the last thing any of you want is a reputation for not giving credit where credit is due. So wherever you feel like you have to borrow that copyrighted material to include in your presentation, please make sure that you cite your sources and that you mention maybe who the copyright holder is. I'm not going to be a stickler in regards to the formatting. I just want you getting into the habit of saying, this is not my work, this is where I got it, or maybe this is who created it. So sometimes a link will suffice. It is important to keep in mind, though, that Google Images is not a source, it is a search engine. So if you find things using Google Images, then you have to track down the original source and make sure you cite that. It's also good to check Creative Commons or stuff that's in public domain. Pixabay, pixabay.com is also a good place to get images from. If you use Adobe Spark to create your presentations, Adobe Spark actually provides the Adobe stock photo database that you can search for images in, and they're usually like really high-res good images. Sometimes they're not quite as specific as you want them to be, but it's good to have that access if you are putting together an Adobe Spark presentation. Now, college level writing standards. This is expected. I need to be able to read your work. I know in this day and age when we do a lot of texting and we're using emoji and shorthand and GIFs and memes and stuff like that, you know, you just have to keep in mind that you want to be using college level writing standards. So what does that mean? That means making sure that you capitalize at the beginning of a sentence and that you include punctuation. Punctuation is really, really important for me to understand what it is that you're saying. I occasionally get student submissions that are like 3 paragraphs long with not a single period in them, and that's really difficult for me to read. And if I can't understand what you're saying, I can't give you credit for it. So if for whatever reason you feel like you might be having some difficulty with writing, we do have a writing standard. We do have a writing center, and they're not going to edit your work, but they'll help you identify some problem areas and maybe give you some tips and just help you improve that. So hold on, let me try to get a copy here. Okay. So you can email the Writing Center at writingcenter@fullsail.com, or you can give them a call by calling Full Sail at 407-679-0100 and then using extension 2340. Professionalism. Professionalism is something that we have here at Full Sail, professionalism grades. And you are going to be graded on your professionalism in every course that you take at Full Sail. It's going to be 10% of your course grade. At the end, that gets all added up and you get like an official professionalism score. And, you know, it's kind of used to determine who's ready to go out into the industry, because if you're constantly missing deadlines, if you are behaving inappropriately with your classmates, if you're speaking inappropriately to your instructor, these are kinds of things that may affect your professionalism. So but there's more details about professionalism in the student manual. So if you haven't already checked that out, I would definitely suggest doing so. There's actually like 2 parts of professionalism. One is in the course. And again, that's 10% of your grade. You start with 100 and then it starts getting chipped away if you submit inappropriate assignments, if you speak inappropriately to your classmates or to the instructor, if you're using foul language or, explicit material or stuff like that. So then you would get point deductions. There's also like the global professionalism, which is stuff that you'd be doing in the community. And at that point, I think you start at 0. And then as you do community stuff, you get more points. But again, this is all explained in the student manual. I don't want anybody to be scared of professionalism. As an instructor, I will likely give you a warning before I deduct professionalism points. So, I'm fairly understanding. I know that we're all adults here. Sometimes something might slip out. You might include, a video game clip that happens to have some vulgar language, So I will give you a warning. I'll let you know, hey, just be a little bit more mindful when you're picking your materials or when you're submitting assignments or whatever before I start deducting points. So don't be like super scared or paranoid, because it's not going to be something like that. But if it's reoccurring, then it becomes a problem. And then at that point, I would probably start deducting points. Now, why Resonate and Slideology? Okay, so this is being recorded right now. As soon as it's over, I'm going to upload it to YouTube. And once it's available, it should be available within a few hours after the session, and you can find it where you got the link to come into the session. So in the point 1 assignment. So I would just say, just give me a couple of hours till after the session, because it takes time to process and for me to get it up, but it will be available. How many of you have already started the reading? Okay, awesome. That's really good to hear. Okay, Colton said, will future Zooms be uploaded to YouTube? Yeah, they're always uploaded to YouTube. I have them unlisted, so in order to access them, you'll have to access them through each of the weekly point one assignments. Hold on one second. Okay, so everybody has, looks like the majority of you have started your reading, which is really good to hear. Both of those books are written by Nancy Duarte, who is the CEO of Duarte Design, which is the largest design firm in Silicon Valley and the 5th largest female employer in the area. Now, in chapter 1, it's discussing resonating and the importance of resonating. Resonance occurs when an object's natural vibration frequency responds to an external stimulus of the same frequency. So there have been videos on YouTube where people have either grains of salt or sand on a vibrational plate, and as they change the frequency, those grains jump around and start getting into different formations. As a matter of fact, I was just on Twitter the other day and I saw that someone had done it on a metal table and was just kind of rubbing the metal table in certain ways to make it vibrate. And it was creating this very big star-shaped circular pattern on the table. And so that will happen. And that's what you want to do with your messaging. You want to make sure that you can hone in on a very specific frequency to speak to your audience. Because if you can get them to resonate with that frequency, then they will do what it is you're asking them to do. They will take whatever action you're asking them to take, whether it's to consider something from a different perspective, or to purchase, a valuable item, or to volunteer for something, whatever it is that messaging is. If you can adjust your frequency and they resonate with it, then they'll change. Industry and art thrive on change. So companies that learn to thrive in the chronic flux and tension between what is and what could be are healthier than those that don't. So if we take a moment to consider the taxi industry. Now, I am from New York, and as a New Yorker, I can tell you that for the most part, a lot of people avoid yellow cabs. The only time we use them is if we're in the city and we kind of have to, but we avoid it whenever possible, choosing to either take the train or walk or whatever, because the experience is just hardly ever a good one. A lot of times they overcharge, they take the long way around, they're kind of grouchy, they just don't usually consider the passengers' needs. So, Uber took note of that. And they said, let's change this. Let's make this different. Why is this such a bad experience? And they made it so that, essentially anyone with a relatively modern car can sign up to be a driver. But the big thing that they did is they put the power in the passenger's hands, because the passenger rates the driver. And the driver has to maintain a certain rating to keep driving for Uber. And that means the driver is now more invested in what the passenger wants and what the passenger needs, and the passenger's happiness, whether that's, making conversation or providing amenities like maybe some bottled water or additional chargers, like a charger for an Android phone, a charger for an iPhone, allowing people to control the stereo and play their own music, stuff like that, which probably would never have been considered from a taxi driver's perspective. So they really, really wanted to shake things up and change things. So many times the future can't be quantified with statistics or facts or proof. And sometimes leaders have to lead with their gut into these uncharted territories where statistics haven't been generated yet. And so Uber decided it wanted to really make a change and make things different and really shake things up. And so that's what they did. Now, I would like to take a moment to ask all of you, if you were to stop and think, of a time where you were in a presentation and you either felt really bored or stuck. Can you share that story and maybe share why you think that was the case, if there was something specific that the presenter was doing that could have been done better? If you raise your hand, I can open your mic and allow you to speak. And there are quite a few of you now. If you really, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable talking, you're welcome to type a little bit of it in the chat and I'll read it. I don't know if we have any military people in here. I know I always hear a lot about military presentations. Hey, so I think it dropped for me. Give me 1 second, see if I can get this. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. All right, let me see if I can get this going again. I apologize. If it drops again and I kind of like totally disappear, then what I'm gonna do is just provide another recording. I'm so sorry about that. Hold on. Okay. I don't know if my question came through, so I will try again. I was just saying that I was hoping to hear from some of you in regards to whether you've sat in on a presentation that you thought was really boring or made you feel trapped. And could you share a little bit about why you think that was the case? And I was asking that you raise your hand so that I can open your mic so that you could speak. I've never had it that nobody wants to share. People usually have at least one story, whether it's like a corporate presentation story. Okay. Hey, Brenda, are you there?
Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
So what's your story?
The most okay. So in my English class, the English teacher gave us a list of topics we can write about and do a presentation over our senior papers for, and we had to do a presentation over. Well, there wasn't a lot of interesting things on the list. So there was a girl who was doing I think Dolly the sheep. Yeah, who was doing Dolly the sheep, which I thought Dolly the sheep was interesting, announcing a lot of facts about it. There wasn't enough like information about Dolly the sheep. She was just a clone and just very minimum basic information about it. Not so much of what they did after the sheep.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense. I completely understand.
So she wasn't giving a lot of information about the subject.
Right. Thank you for sharing, Brenda. Hold on a second. I am actually having some trouble here and I am getting notifications that my connection is not stable. So are you all okay with me providing a previous recording for the remainder of the session? It will be the exact same material, so you're not going to be missing anything. And of course, 100%, if you watch the session and you have questions, then you should definitely reach out. I don't know how clearly I'm coming across. Am I coming across robotic at all? Okay, a little, not really. All right, maybe I still might be able to get through it. So let me, yeah, because I am getting notifications that's saying that my internet is unstable, which is unfortunate. I don't know why it's being that way. So let me just try a little bit more. And at the end, I guess we can figure out if it's a problem, and I'll give you the recording. All right, so education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. This is a quote. You can put it on a slide. You can share it with your audience. You can read it to them. But there's something that happens when you pair a quote with an image, because facts alone fall short. People rarely act by reason alone. You want to be able to tap into other deeply seated desires and beliefs in order to be persuasive. And you need a small thorn that is sharper than fact to prick their hearts. And that thorn is emotion. So here is the same quote, and it is being paired with The School of Athens by Raphael, which has a bunch of philosophers holding books and talking. So education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. And just by pairing it with this image, now it's more academic. Now it's a little bit more serious. Even though we're looking at a painting, it still provides imagery that adds a little bit more weight to the quote. Now, what happens when you pair it with an image like this? Same quote. Education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. And here we see real humans. We see children. We see what is not a very idealistic learning situation, but they're present. They're still there. They want to learn, and they're taking an active role in their education to making sure that that's still possible. So this is a much stronger visual, and it connects with us on a human level. So there's just a seriousness to it. It gives a lot more weight to the quote. Now, what happens when we pair it with something like this? Does anyone know where this is from? Yeah, so Colton says the second image definitely sparks more of an emotional response. And yes, you are correct. It is Bill and Ted. So, you know, same quote, education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel, but you introduce Bill and Ted, and now all of a sudden, it's not so serious. Now it's somewhat comedic. It's humorous. So the images that you select are really going to help add specific emotion, and they're going to communicate, and they're going to tell a visual story alongside whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. So it breathtaking. Yeah. So it does change the tone of the messaging. So you have to be really mindful of the images that you select. Now, there are 4 types of audiences. The one that we can all hope for is having a friendly audience. They are excited, they are smiling, they are happy to be there. If you have people that are apathetic, you might have people that aren't paying attention, that are on their phones, that don't care, that are just there for mandatory credit or whatever other reason. You might have some audience members that are uninformed. And it's important to know if you're going to have uninformed audience members, because you may need to incorporate a little bit of educating in your presentation. Lastly, we have hostile. And you may have hostile audience members in every audience, but it would be really important to know if the majority of them were going to be hostile. So for example, if you were tasked with having to deliver a presentation about the newest iPhone to a bunch of Android users, you would want to know that beforehand. You would want to research what kinds of things are important to Android users, and you'd want to frame the presentation in a way that's going to appeal to them if you already know that they're going to be slightly hostile or antagonistic to whatever it is you're presenting. So getting to know the audience. A lot of people think that as the presenter, they're the hero, but that's not actually the case. The audience is the hero. You're the mentor as the presenter, but you want to be thinking about what it would be like to be them. Avoid thinking about their job or what they are and focus on the things that make them who they are. So what you want to be thinking about is their lifestyle, their knowledge, their motivation, desires, values, influence, and respect. Now, when we're talking about their lifestyle, what is their lifestyle? What are their hobbies? What are their hangouts? As far as knowledge goes, what do they know about your topic and where did they get their information from? And this one's really, really important, especially in regards to your main assignment this month. And it seems to get overlooked a lot. So like I mentioned before, you are going to be pitching yourself to a potential employer. And in your plan, you're going to want to research them. You're going to want to find out as much as you can. And that may involve finding out when the company was started, who the CEO is, where they're located, what kind of work they create. All of that information is really important for you to know to craft your message. However, when you're putting together your presentation, that's not something you want to parrot back to them because they already know those things. They know about their company. They know what kind of work they create. They know who their CEO is and their history and their accolades and all of those things. So you really have to keep in mind, what is their knowledge? What is it that they need to know? And make sure that you don't waste their time telling them things they don't need to know. For motivation and desire, what do they need? What do they desire? What are they looking for? Have they already put out, ads looking to fill a spot for certain positions? What's important to them? What are the company values, the core values? What is their mission? For influence, who or what influences them and what experience have they had that influences them? And lastly, how do they give and receive respect? These are all the things you want to consider when you're doing research on your audience. And the more you can find out, the better. So how do you relate to your audience? I feel like this is a great quote and really spells things out a bit. So designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to whom it may concern. And if you take a moment to think about that, honestly, I don't know how many people are still writing love letters in this day and age, but I know that I did a lot when I was younger. And you don't just put general stuff in there. The whole point of a love letter is to convey how much this single person means to you. Why are they so different? What is it that you noticed about them that maybe no one else has noticed about them? And you make it as specific as possible. So ever writing a love letter to whom it may concern is silly unless you're doing it for that purpose of just like, hey, there's someone out there, but I don't know who it is. So you want to make sure that you're taking the time to figure out what makes your audience tick. Imagine them as individuals, and they have one thing in common. They're there for you, but to find out what you can do for them. So make sure you take as much time as you can to find out everything you can about your audience to be able to create that effective message. Now, there's always going to be some kind of risk involved. So you want to be clear about that. What is your audience sacrificing? What are some of the perceived risks in adopting the change that you're suggesting? And for that specific presentation, what you're suggesting is that they hire you. So what might be the risk? Maybe the risk might be that you don't have quite as much experience as someone else does, but there's other things about you that they may find valuable. But you need to really spell those things out so that they know, because you're asking them to come out of their comfort zone. And there's going to be some resistance. A lot of times people resist because you're asking them to make some sort of sacrifice, whether it be coming out of their comfort zone or fear, vulnerabilities, misunderstandings, obstacles, maybe even politics. But there's also reward. So what will the reward be for adopting the change that you're proposing? An audience is not going to act unless they feel like it's worthwhile. So rewards should appeal to physical, relational, or self-fulfillment needs, but you want to be clear and identify what those rewards are. Now this week, you are working on 2 main weighted assignments. One is the 1.3 discussion board assignment, and basically you're just sharing your presentation experience. The instructions do have some prompts that I would like you to answer, especially if you're struggling to put together your post and talk about your experience. One of the required questions is identifying what you're hoping to learn this month. So do your best to answer the questions, even if you don't feel like you have any formal presentation experience. Try to dig a little bit deeper. If you've ever been on an interview, that is a form of presenting. So you might have to think outside the box to make some references to presenting, and that's totally okay. It also asks if you're familiar with any presentation software. If you're not, don't just skip the question. Say, you know, I don't have any presentation software experience, but I've always wanted to learn how to use PowerPoint, or I've dabbled in PowerPoint, but I haven't actually created a presentation in it. Just think of ways that you can answer the question honestly, but still take time to answer the question. Now, outside of your initial post, which is due tomorrow by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, you'll have until Sunday to respond to your classmates. And I really want you to be as genuine and human and authentic as you can be. I know sometimes forced interaction can be a pain, but please do your best to listen to what your classmate is saying, respond to it, maybe ask a question to further engage or continue the conversation. And while I'm not going to be counting words, I do want you to know what a nice, good, well-developed reply post looks like. And that's about approximately 125 words. So try to aim for that as a target. And that's really the only reason why I'm giving you this number, is so that you know where to be aiming for. If it's 120 words, if it's 110, it's 100, like, you know, whatever, but at least you're aiming for that target and trying your best. I'm not really going to be counting words, but if all you put is a couple of words or just 2 sentences, I'm not going to give you full credit for that as a well-developed reply. Does anyone have any questions about the 1.3 assignment? It's fairly straightforward, so it's okay if you don't have any questions. Okay. Now, the 1.4 assignment is the professional presentation analysis assignment. And for this, you're going to be picking 3 TED Talks. You're going to watch them. You're going to provide an analysis for each. Now, an analysis for each doesn't necessarily mean a page for each. My voice is very scratchy today. So I want you to tell me how they delivered their presentation, not what they talked about. So you want to analyze it, don't summarize it. Sometimes with a longer analysis, there is a lot of mention of what they discussed, and that's okay. But if all you tell me is this presentation was about XYZ, and you don't tell me how it was presented, I can't give you credit for that. Okay, hold on, we have a question. If we post an initial response and then later recall further detail, could we edit the original? I would say you can add a secondary. If you make an initial post and then you're like, oh crap, I missed a question. If you just reply to yourself, I'll see all of that when I'm grading it, and I'll give you credit for all of it. So for the TED Talks, again, I want you telling me how they presented. Did they open with a question? Did they make eye contact? Were they using hand gestures? Did they have a demonstration? Were there any props? Did they use music? Did they have visuals? Was there a call to action? Did they make the audience the hero? These are the things that I want you thinking about. And this is why I strongly, strongly suggest that you complete the assigned reading before starting on the 1.4 assignment, because it will really give you the vocabulary that you need to describe those presentation techniques and to be able to identify them. Because if not, you're just going to be like, oh, they stood on stage, they had slides, they were humorous, and that's all you're going to say. But I want you to dig a little bit deeper, because remember, the point of the assignment is to identify all those presentation techniques so that you can then decide which ones you want to use when you're putting together your own presentation. So after you've analyzed all 3 of the TED Talks that you watched, you're going to provide a single list of 10 presentation techniques and qualities that you identified from watching those that you want to include in your own presentation. So again, you might say hand gestures helped to communicate, or I'd like to make eye contact with the audience, or, and you don't have to phrase it that way. You can just say, you know, eye contact with a little bit of a description saying which of the presenters did show eye contact. Humor, call to action, star moment, you know, whatever it is that you identify that you want to make sure that you include in your presentation, that's what's going to be in that list of 10. This document also needs to have some supporting visuals, and it can be screenshots, so that's perfectly okay. Screenshots tend to be most relevant, honestly. But if you say in your analysis, so-and-so used slides, or so-and-so had a prop on stage, then you may want to include an image showing exactly that, because that will help support your analysis and help support your talking points visually. Does that make sense? Okay. I will each week provide an assignment video walkthrough, which just helps provide a little bit of a visual for maybe the formatting of the assignment and what you need to include. So you'll get a notification for that after the session. I'll post it after the session. And I always post it as an announcement. So you can go back and check announcements whenever you want, and all the announcements I'll have made this month will be in the announcements section. It does not necessarily have to be from the video. I feel like those screenshots tend to work best for like in context imagery, but it doesn't have to be that. Like if you were to get headshots from the presenters, that would kind of count as supporting visuals, because I don't know what the presenters look like if you name them. So that helps give me an idea of what they look like. Sometimes it might be an image that they showed on one of their slides. You just want to try to be as relevant and within context as possible. One list of 10, yes. 10 qualities, presentation techniques and qualities. Okay, so you are watching 3 TED Talks and you are analyzing 3 TED Talks. Now, as far as what kind of TED Talks, I normally recommend that you try to pick one in the industry that you try to pick some in the industry you're going into. That is just a suggestion on my part. I feel like it helps get you a little bit more excited for, what you're going to be doing in the future, and that might additionally pique your interest because it's relevant to your interests, but that's not a requirement. So if you want to, pick 3 completely different TED Talks that you found and liked for whatever reason, you can. I don't want you really at any point, with the exception of the replies, the discussion board replies, I don't want you to be super focused on how long something should be. Really focus on the quality and making sure that you're answering all the questions, because I can tell you, as someone who tends to be rather concise with things, if you answer all the questions and you look at it and you think it's short, I will likely still give you credit because you've answered all the questions. So really focus on the quality of it and just making sure that you're addressing all the requirements. So your analysis could be a nice hearty paragraph for each TED Talk that says, so-and-so came on stage, they had stage presence, they made eye contact, they delivered a presentation on X, Y, and Z, they asked the audience a question, they had a prop, blah, blah, blah. They did a great job. If you really wanted to, you could. Honestly, I wouldn't suggest it. I think it's just better to find 3 TED Talks that engaged you, and then just talking about, what techniques they actually used, and then selecting the 10 that you observed that you want to include, the 10 techniques that you observed that you want to include in your own presentation. If you happen to get one that you feel like they did something poorly, maybe they didn't, maybe they spent a lot of time looking at notes and they didn't make eye contact, then definitely mention that. But I wouldn't necessarily suggest seeking out a poorly executed one. Does anybody have any questions about the TED Talk presentation analysis assignment? No? Does all 3 TED Talks have to be one? Could you try asking your question again? I'm not sure. I understand what the question is. Are you saying, does the quality have to be in all 3 TED Talks? Thanks, Wade. I appreciate that. Brenda, could you try asking your question again? Just in case this is what you're asking, all 3 TED Talks do not have to be on the same topic. TED Talks themselves tend to be about 19 minutes long. And I will say that I'm also willing to accept TEDx talks, which happen to be, they're still part of TED, but they're a little bit more local, and they tend to be a little shorter. So if you happen to find a TEDx talk that you thought was really interesting, you're welcome to still use those. As far as finding them, you could go to the TED website and try to look for some there. But what I like to do when looking for TED Talks is I actually Google a certain topic and then add TED Talk. So you could say video game related TED Talks, design TED Talks, music TED Talks, and it'll usually give you all the TED Talks in that category. And I think it's easier to find them that way. You can also find them on YouTube. So everything should be in one document. Yes, please. It's really helpful for me when grading if everything is in one document. So basically the formatting is going to be like presentation title, presenter name. You can have your supporting visual. Then under that, you would have your analysis. Then you do it again, presentation title, presenter name, another visual, supporting visual, your analysis. Then you do it for the third. And then the last thing in your document should be that list of 10 qualities. Okay, you only need one list of 10 qualities. Not for each. Thank you, Manny. So basically what ends up happening is that you'll probably pull a couple from each one to add up to 10. If you really want, you could submit a PowerPoint, but I feel like this assignment tends to be a bit more text heavy, and my recommendation would be to use a Word document, since that still allows you to insert images. And not silly at all. So if you, again, if you feel strongly about using PowerPoint, you're welcome to do that. I've just, a lot of times, it's presentation software, so it shouldn't be like super text heavy. So I feel, as a designer, I feel weird saying use PowerPoint for what should be a text heavy document. Does anyone else have any other questions? No problem. It sounds like you guys are good. It's been a while since I've had a class where everybody was on point. So maybe this is the month, which is fine, and that's great. Sometimes what happens is I close down the session and all of a sudden somebody's like, crap, I had a question. I just thought of it. And that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine if you remember something as soon as I shut the session down. Just go ahead and shoot me a message on FSO and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. The thing to keep in mind is that your initial discussion board post is due tomorrow before midnight. So that's kind of, I would say, the first thing you should be working on, but also try to finish the assigned reading for the week so that you are prepared with all the knowledge you need to put together your TED Talk assignment. Also, just because I get it every month, do your best not to overthink the assignment. It's really just about being able to watch presentations and identify the techniques that you're using. So don't overthink it. All right, everyone. Well, I think you're all good. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Sorry for the hiccups and the meowing and whatever else happened. But I think we survived and made it through okay. So if you do have any questions, again, just be sure to reach out, and have a wonderful holiday this week.